Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Welcome, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Co-op. You know, this past Thursday, I was inducted into the Cooperative Hall of Fame. Talking about exciting, exuberant, it was just awesome. And today, our team, which consists of Pat Thornton, Rob McClinton, and Justin Franks, will interview me. So, Pat, why don't you get started?
Well, I certainly appreciate that introduction, Vernon. Yes, this is the team of Everything Co-op. We've been in existence for 11 years. 11 years ago, Vernon and I decided to start this program, Everything Co-op. He figured that there weren't enough people who knew about cooperatives, and with his commitment, we decided after he came on my radio show that for Co-op Month, we would have the show. It was sponsored by NCB at the time, and we did it for 1 month. Fast forward to the end of the month, and Vernon was having so much fun, and there were so many people enjoying the show.
Amen.
That Vernon decided to pay for it for the whole year. Chuck Snyder, then president of National Co-op Bank, said, "Vernon, how are you doing this?" Vernon said, "Oh, I'm doing it for myself, man. It's like, this is fun." Chuck said, no, you don't need to do that. And National Cooperative Bank has been our sponsor since the beginning of Everything Co-op. So we certainly like to thank our dear friend, posthumously, Chuck Snyder, for believing in us. He said he was just trying to help a friend, but then Vernon came through with that silky voice. Uh-oh. And the next thing he knew, he said, "This is really popping. This is more than helping. Like, really making out here." So he decided to carry on, and to Casey Fannin, who has continued that legacy and supported us, and all of the community. They got the whole community with them to help support us do this communication to the broader community to inform them about Everything Co-op. So when people are inducted into the Hall of Fame, usually their team posts ads. We did the ad in the program, and their team gets to write articles or papers or other kinds of things. But since we have a radio show, we decided that we would use the radio show and just interview Vernon. So today we have the pleasure, and Vernon has allowed us an opportunity to interview him. And we normally, many of you know that for the past 4 weeks, we were interviewing the inductees into the Co-op Hall of Fame. Vernon gave up his week so that he could go to the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives and do their conference. So he put himself to after the Hall of Fame. So now we can talk about the joy that we had and everything that goes along with that. So with that being said, we welcome you to our interview of Vernon, and to give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about him, his journey. And I'm certainly thrilled to have our core team members with us. Vernon mentioned that Rob McClinton and Justin Franks would be with us. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Sam Surafal, who's helped us with marketing, and our person who does all of our posting and our social media, Melanie, who's now somewhere in Africa, still helping us to promote the show. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Rob McClinton. Rob, you have it. Turned over to you.
Thanks, Pat. As the newest member of the team, I'm really honored to be a part of this group. I actually don't know how long it's been. This keeps coming up, and we keep having to go through email history to find the answer. At some point, we'll write this down. But Vernon, when we think about the foundations of not just the show, but of you and your role and your place in the cooperative community, I want to go back to the foundation that brought you to it. Like, what was it about how you came up that made the values around cooperativism something that was appealing to you? So is there anything around your history, your roots, your family growing up that you think made you more aligned with folks who want to serve and work in the cooperative community versus not?
So if you go all the way back to Bluefield, West Virginia, okay, when I was maybe 12 years old, we had to walk 1.5 miles to the basketball court. And as we were walking one day, I said it would be nice if they would build a basketball court over here. And the question became is who is they? And we as a community, an older guy named Don Jones, we started literally digging out a hill, leveling it out, and built a basketball court. So cooperatively, we built a basketball court. I don't know who bought the net and the goal. But we built a basketball court and we played there all the time. So that was early on, and it was the same thing throughout. It was just how do we do things cooperatively? But in most recent times, like when I started the property management business here in the district and I started managing limited equity housing co-ops, what I became curious about was watching the board members run the business. Each housing multifamily dwellings was a business, collected income, paid bills, fixed things. And watching everyday people, mostly black females, perhaps at best a high school degree, make extremely informed long-term decisions, holding each other accountable, me accountable, the lawyer accountable, the auditor accountable. And I just got excited about it and started researching co-ops. And more I found out about them, the more I liked them. And just love this co-op thing and the values, particularly ethical values of honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. Love the values and principles of cooperation.
All right. You've talked about the women who ran that housing cooperative. Whenever you tell the history on that, because obviously that was your introduction to the model. Is there anything? Do you have any memories about any one of those interactions that really stand out to you? That really just kind of lit a fire in your mind, and like this is unexpectedly amazing?
Well, it was. I guess the main thing was when you're on a board, you're collecting rent, or co-op fee is what it's called, from your neighbors and from, the board members have to pay. They're members of the co-op. They have to pay into it. And watching the board members hold, like I said, each other accountable for their payment of their bills and whatever they had to do, and then holding others. One of the things that some board members did not like doing was collecting. Okay, because you've got to go to your neighbor. And that's one of the reasons they hired a management company to do it. But they then had to decide to revoke their membership, take them to court, or evict. And watching them do that, saying, you have to pay, because we have to pay the rent, we have to pay for lights and water and everything that goes in insurance, and you have to pay so that we can have a successful business here. And they would hold each other accountable. And that was the first thing I noticed and I liked.
That's a tough conversation to have with your neighbor.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
A lot of people avoid sales and talking around money for that very reason. So to be able to figure out how to run that structure, do you know if that organization, if they had any formal training around the cooperative model, or did they just kind of figure it out?
So one of the nice things that Mayor Barry, who was the mayor for life here in the district, he had put in place TOPA, Tenant Opportunity to Purchase. And in that, so if a building became available, if a landlord wanted to sell a building, the tenant has the first right of refusal to buy that building. That's what TOPA laws were. In all of that, the government, the DC government, paid for training. One group was called Housing Counseling Services. They are still in existence. Okay, they would provide training for these tenants. Okay, these people that were just normally renting, now they're becoming owners of the building. And the biggest thing, Rob, was getting the tenants to change the mentality of being a tenant. I call up when the toilet breaks to an owner, and I've got to make sure that toilet gets fixed, or part of my co-op fee fixes that toilet. And having ownership, that was the biggest issue in that transformation from being a tenant where a landlord owned the building, and being an owner where the residents owned the building. So yeah, there was a lot of training. And that training had to be ongoing training because board members change, circumstances change, laws change. So that was ongoing training, and that was what I liked. What I found out that was the fifth principle of cooperation: education, training, and information. You had to have that training. Critical.
Yeah, that transformation from being the tenant to a collective landlord is not too dissimilar from in other cooperative organizations where you're not a worker, you're one of the many owners. You've talked to a lot of people in the movement over this time. What have you seen when people make that jump from this is not something that is kind of being done to me in some ways, but it is something that I'm helping to do?
Well, once a person gets that, that's the critical piece. Okay. And so you're talking about a worker co-op. A worker co-op is a business that is created by the employees for the benefit of the employees. Now, when there's a conversion, that there used to be an owner of this business, and now the employees own it. That's where that transformation, that mental transformation, has to happen. It also has to happen, but I think it's easier if a group of people, if the four of us decided, as we have decided to do, create a worker co-op called Everything Co-op Communications, Inc., a media company, then it seems that transformation happens because they are creating the business. It happens better. But that is the critical piece of cooperation, is that the people that own the business have the say. It's democratically controlled, one member, one vote, and they have the say in how this business operates.
You know, we have a mythos here in America around the individual who gets everything done on their own, and the individual, the entrepreneurial hero, and all of that. And if you take a look at any of the memoirs or biographies, they're not really acting alone. But do you think anyone can turn the corner in that thinking to work collaboratively and cooperatively in some structure?
Well, if you're talking about the John Wayne syndrome, that's what I call it. John Wayne was always the hero. But if it was a cowboy movie, he had a posse, he had a group of people. If it was a military movie, they had a brigade. He was never by himself. That's the issue. And when you start talking about when you want to talk about people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, too often people may not even have a boot to pull themselves up with. And so when they work together and share their nickels and dimes, okay, then they can create something together and grow that together. But yeah, I think that syndrome or ethos of individualism is really a farce. It doesn't exist. Rarely does it exist, I should say. It's a group, it's a team.
You know, as Pat mentioned, we were just at your induction into the Hall of Fame at the Impact Conference there in DC. Someone came up to me and talked to me around cooperativism from a moral or more of a natural sense. And they reminded me of what I once said to you when you had me on the show for the very first time, that humans have been cooperating from the very beginning. Like, our species would not be where we're at today if we didn't work together. But so many of us think that we can't. And I started wondering about the epidemic of loneliness. That we see a lot of folks literally dying of loneliness and suffering and poor health because they're alone. Do you think that there's a connection between the mental space, your mental health, when you're working and building and doing things cooperatively versus when you're just trying to do it on your own?
So I want to expand it a little bit. I think it makes a difference mentally, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your spiritual health, for your financial health, working together as a team, working together collectively. It also, once one learns, if Rob, you and I would be looking at something and you think we should go left and I think we should go right, once we learn how to talk and listen to each other, we may find it's better to go down the center. Okay, something totally different from what either one of us had. And so, that loneliness would go away if you're in a 55 plus senior building that's a co-op. It's run by the seniors. They create programs for the seniors. It's by the seniors and for the seniors. Then, you don't have that loneliness. And it helps with the mental health. But all of the different health variables, and if you look at the determinants of health, housing is one of the critical ones. So I think cooperation, working together, helps everybody in every aspect of their life. And real quickly, I also believe cooperation is the center of humanity. That is, if you go back, whether it's on the plain of the Sahara Desert or here in the U.S. with the indigenous people or anywhere, people had to work together. Everybody, young people, old people, men, women, everybody had their thing to do. And if you didn't do your thing, then the whole community went down. That's nothing but cooperation.
Yeah. And so, just a little bit of a pivot, when you think back to all the folks you've talked to over the years on the show, are there any cooperatives, either the businesses, the people who run it, or the model, that just really sticks with you as one of your favorites, or one of the most unique, or one that's like, wow, I didn't see that coming?
So my best show normally is my last show. Okay. Okay. But if you look at Shy Fresh in Chicago, created by 5 formerly incarcerated people, I think 4 women, 1 man, created in 2020 and during COVID, has been highly successful. They create meals for institutions like churches and schools, and they found out that's what was needed within COVID, and so they got started. Then they have created a housing co-op, and I heard Kim, I don't remember her last name, but she spoke at the worker co-op conference, and she said, I didn't think I could own a car, let alone a business. Okay, that's how she started her presentation. Okay, so that's one of them. Equal Exchange, a 150-person worker co-op. The home healthcare co-op in New York, I think the Bronx is 1,500 people in that one. And then you have the inclusive credit unions. There's 400 of those that cater to low-income communities, low-resource communities. There is just so many. I could keep going, but that.
Shy Fresh, and for those who are not from Chicago, that's going to be a CHI, Fresh.
Yes.
I've been meaning to look that up because you've mentioned them before, and that's a particularly wonderful story because they're formerly incarcerated and being able to take their life into their own hands and drive it more. Mm-hmm. Have you heard a lot of stories of folks, being able to do that through the power of cooperatives, being able to because not everyone can stand up and do the overnight thing and work under ramen, and that's just not realistic. But have you seen or heard a lot of stories of that happening?
Well, first off, you need to understand that starting a co-op is hard work. It just doesn't happen. The payoff is awesome. It's phenomenal. but it takes work. It takes effort. More sweat equity than finances and cash. But it does take work, and everybody's not going to do the work. Okay. And there is a co-op, People's Food Co-op in Detroit People's Food Co-op. It took them 13 years to get it up and going, and $22 million they raised to get it started. Okay. So it does take effort and work to get this thing done, but it helps the individual, it helps the family, it helps the community once you get it up and get it running. And so have I heard of many of them? For me, yes. And I would like to see a lot more. Okay. Because I think it is an answer, if not the answer, for poverty. And another, Dame Pauline Green, who was the president of the International Cooperative Alliance on the show, said co-ops help people come out of poverty with dignity. And so I've said that a lot on the show. I like that quote a lot. Yeah.
When we were at your table at the Hall of Fame dinner, I asked the question I'm going to ask you around what have folks, those of us in the cooperative movement and using the cooperative model, what have we haven't done so far that you've seen through your time here that we could have, should do moving forward to help people understand what the model is and how to leverage it and use it? What's been lacking from your perspective?
The huge lack is we don't talk about co-ops enough. We inside of the cooperative space, we talk about it to each other, but getting it out is the thing that we don't do as often. And I think it was Casey Fannin when he introduced me he's the president of the NCB. He said, Vernon says that co-ops are the best kept secret. And I'm not going to let it be a best kept secret. It's the reason for the radio show, to let people know about them and understand them. And I believe there will be a lot more once people understand what they are. So I think that is the main thing. It's just not shouting from the rooftop about this great economic model called cooperation. And we do it with capitalists. Schools teach it. It's in the newspapers, the Wall Street Journal is all about capitalism, the whole paper. We don't have that in the co-op space. So yes, we just need to tell people more about it.
And it is a very subtle education around competitive capitalism, right? Just the Shark Tank, their TV shows, the magazines, the articles, but nothing around working together, the fundamental thing around our species, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't talk about it so much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, and so just one more thing from your history, from your past, if you were to take a look back now that you've got 11 years under your belt with doing the show, and I know that Chuck was very instrumental and a dear friend of yours when it comes to moving you into the cooperativism, helping to do the show and spread the word. Are there any other folks who over this reign, whether they're with us still or not, who you want to give a nod to thank them for getting you to this point?
First off, it's quite a few. And I did mention some of them at the Hall of Fame, knowing that I was going to miss quite a few and hoping I didn't anger anybody for missing their names. But Liz Bailey, who's now deceased, was just phenomenal. Quiet lady, tremendous work ethic, and knew a lot of people and knew the political scene. Ralph Page, who's now deceased, was the executive director of the Federation of Southern Co-ops. Quite helpful. He was the first Thanksgiving Thursday he was on the show. And he said he could be on if his wife allowed him. And when I finally met his wife, she was maybe 5 foot in high heels, very small lady. And I said, Ralph, you made me think she was, 7 foot tall. He said, oh, she carries a big stick. Okay. So Ralph was awesome. And you go to people now, there's just so many, Rob. Just so many. And Casey Fannin, you go to Colluminate and Mark Goring, who was on that committee. Martin Lowry.
Vernon?
Yes.
I'm going to let you off the hook because there's a caller on the line who wants to speak with you.
Okay.
I believe our engineer has a caller on hold who wants to speak to Vernon before we go to break.
Mr. Peck, did you have a comment or question?
No, I just wanted to congratulate Vernon Oakes as being the mentor of so many of us, together with Pat Thornton, the producer. The two of them are the dearest friends, and what they've done for the U.S. co-op community is beyond measure and historic. Epic, as we say up here in central Long Island. So I just want to express those sentiments and give a big virtual hug to Vernon and the team.
Thank you, Michael Peck, and this is mutual admiration time because we love you also, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So we're going to take our first break, and that was a great place to stop. When we come back, Justin is going to talk about present, and Pat is going to talk about the future. And in the future is where I really want to focus on. Somebody asked me, Rob, when I got nominated and it was announced, what are you going to use Hall of Fame for? And I said, well, look, it just happened. I don't know. But as I thought about it, was how do you use getting into the Hall of Fame to promote co-ops and to get more people involved in this cooperation? And that's what we want to do. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Co-op. As Pat talked about earlier, we've been on the show for 11 years, and NCB has been our main sponsor. NCB's mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. And as we've had interviews over these 11 years, a number of those cooperatives have used the services of NCB, and they've just been a great sponsor. Pat, do you want to take it from here?
Absolutely, Vernon. I think it was really interesting that when Rob asked you to name people who you'd like to give a nod to, that the first person you named was Liz Bailey. We lost Liz Bailey, and she was a dear friend. In fact, for me, she was the person who Vernon sent me to an event to stand in for him. She was the person who took me by my hand and actually introduced me to all the top people in the cooperative world and told them that they had to be on the show when it wasn't popular. So we have hats off to Liz Bailey, both you and I. And I thought it would be a perfect time while we were paying tribute to you to hear a little bit from Liz Bailey, because the last time we did this, Vernon wasn't able to be with us, and Liz called in. So if we can hear a little bit from Liz Bailey, I think it is just the right and perfect time right after Michael Peck. We'll go ahead with that. So Liz, welcome to Everything Co-op.
I have so enjoyed the time with Vernon and Pat, Justin, and another collaborator, Michael Peck, where we've had a regular opportunity to really brainstorm about what's going on in the co-op world and what we should be talking about in the co-op world. And it has been such an enlightening opportunity, and Vernon has always been willing to take the issue and take whatever it is that we've talked about and decided to move it into a space where we can have the public learn more about it. I think what has been the most empowering to me has been Vernon's willingness to really take that leadership to be the person out there as the advocate for where co-ops need to be visible in the community. That's one of the things that he and another collaborator of ours, Roberta McDonald, have been the people who really are believers in how much people need to understand what co-ops are in the community. And Vernon has been just so good at talking to people about co-op in that context and giving us the opportunity to really think about co-op in a new way that will give everybody an opportunity to understand how they're connected to people and institutions and all of the ways that co-ops are there working together for all of us. And I think that's been the partnership that's really been powerful. And I don't need to occupy more time than that to move over and let somebody else have their thoughts too.
So thank you very much, Liz.
You are entirely welcome.
Well, thank you, thank you, Pat, for putting Liz on. That was wonderful. She was just a great friend. And when Rob had mentioned who else has been helpful and beneficial, with Michael Peck was one of those I was trying, and Roberta McDonald was another one. Just has been so many people that have been extremely helpful. Miss Deb Trocher is on the line. Good morning,
Hi,
Deb.
Vernon. Good morning. How are you?
Great. You have the mic.
Thank you so much. I am so sorry that I wasn't able to be there in person for the Hall of Fame. You are so deserving of the honor. You have been such a friend to the Indiana Cooperative Development Center and to the up-and-coming Food Co-op Conference. I just wanted everyone to know that your reach into the co-op world is very, very broad. It's not just into the housing co-op space. It goes across the entire spectrum of the co-op world. So thank you so much for all that you have done to make sure people hear about the co-op business model, understand it, put those stories out on a regular basis so that people can hear about what's happening in the co-op world. Just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Deb, thank you so much for all that you do. The reason I support you and the Indiana Cooperative Development Center and Up and Coming is because you do just great work. And again, Rob, when you ask me who else, Deb Trocher. Okay. Thank you, Deb.
Oh, thank you, Vernon. Really appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Okay, Justin, are you up to talk about the current, what we're doing present for about 5 or 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah, we are in the present moment. And as you mentioned, you were recently inducted in the Co-op Hall of Fame. And so I was wondering, what was that experience like for you, receiving the award and everything around the event?
Justin, it was hard for me to sit in my seat. It was like my heart was just bubbling over with joy and excitement. I didn't even know if I can explain it. The feeling was, I never had it before. It was just so exciting to know so many people, to see the good that co-ops do, and then be rewarded for work that is done while I'm alive. And so I got the flowers. It was just awesome. That's all I can say. Just awesome.
You definitely brought the house down. There was a roaring thunder of applause, and we were sitting in the front, so we could hear it all behind us. It was like a tidal wave from behind us. So it was a great atmosphere. You definitely brought the party. So we were proud to be at the same table as you. And I'm going to switch gears to, we recently formed as a co-op, as you also mentioned earlier. And so you also mentioned the experience you've had working in different contexts and different business settings. So I'm really curious what it was like to now be working in a co-op environment and how that might have, be different for you than working in a traditional business setting. Would you be able to elaborate on that?
So I worked for Cummins Engine Company, which is a Fortune 500 company. When I was there, it had 22,000 employees worldwide. And that was a hierarchy of the president and vice presidents and on down, directors, managers, etc. And then I started Oakes Management, Inc., was a hierarchy corporate business. I say co-op, capitalistic business, where I made most of the decisions. And as I learned about co-ops, I tried to then spread out the decisions to get more of the employees to help make decisions. What I was amazed at, they didn't want to. They were used to me making decisions, and that's what they wanted to happen. So with us starting, okay, with a Justin Frank and a Pat Thornton and a Rob McClinton and myself, I don't have to, you guys, you all like making decisions and sharing decisions and speak up and have voice, so we can all make decisions. And it's been interesting to watch us make decisions, okay? Exciting, particularly when I try to get this other group to make decisions and they wouldn't. It's interesting when different opinions happen and we can talk it through and everybody has voice. And I think that's where the dignity comes from. And Dame Pauline's statement, co-ops help people come out of poverty with dignity, is that voice to have say-so. And talking about voice, Monica Raines is on. Monica, good morning. You have the mic. What do you need to say?
Good morning, Vernon. So great to connect with you this morning. I am calling to wish you again congratulations on your induction last week to the Cooperative Hall of Fame. And I just want you to know that you are a giant upon whose shoulders others will stand in our cooperative movement, and we are so proud of your success.
Oh, thank you, Monica. Thank you. I think you are a giant. The first time I interviewed you, you were with the Federation of Southern Co-ops talking about land retention, and more people called in that interview than any other time. And now you with the Department of Agriculture doing great things. So thank you for what you're doing and what you just said. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
All right, there.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Justin.
Yeah, if we can zoom out a little bit. So we're living by any account in a pretty divided time today. So when you look at the present moment from a macro lens, how do you think co-ops might help bridge or address the divisions we're facing as a country?
Great question. That gets more into future, but we can do it now. We have a election coming up with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So the rural electric co-op started something called vote.coop. You can go to vote.coop and see if you're registered, see who is running in your area, your city, your county, your state, and federal government, both for the Senate and the House. You can get all of this information. But what I would like to see, well, first off, they have something they call a five-star co-op. And so I'd like to see more and more co-ops become five-star, and that is get their members to be registered to vote. But I'd also like to see us get to the place where we would take a look at Kamala Harris against the cooperative values and principles, and then take a look at Donald Trump. I mean, even the ethical values of honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. Where are they on those issues? Based on what they've done in the past, not on what they might say today, but based on what they've done, where do they stand on co-op values and principles? But that's all the way down, looking at people that's running for the school board. Okay. You could have that same conversation again against our values and principles. And I would like to see us get much more involved in co-ops in the political process, because the politics and the economics go hand in hand. And where we would elect more people that would push co-ops, okay, and push policies and laws and monies so we can create more and more co-ops. And we used to do it in the Department of Agriculture and Housing, and we did it in a number of different spaces that we don't have the money for today, and we need to get the money back in those spaces to create co-ops for the people, by the people.
So one last thing I wanted to ask was, given, I guess we're kind of having an election of our own, and with everything co-op right now, I was wondering if you could talk about the current promotion, the campaign that we have going on, if you don't mind.
So last year we started, and it was Rob's idea, which we all loved, to create a holiday list, a co-op holiday list. And there's 5 different segments: mind, body, soul, community, That's 4 of the 5 that the products or services would fit under heart. Okay. And we are asking people to go to everything.coop, and you can nominate a product or co-op in that area. And then we will eventually elect 3 in each of those categories, and we will promote those. And they had one promotion where we did a TV commercial, if you will, on 3 of those products, and it went to 165 different stations and podcasts and so forth. So that we would promote, and then just another way to promote co-ops is promote their products and services. And we did get some feedback from some of them that they did see an increase in their sales.
Thanks, Vernon. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Pat, just to bring it more into the future here.
Thank you so much, Justin. This has been really exhilarating, and I've especially liked those surprise pop-ins. Thanks to everyone for calling in to congratulate Vernon. It was a semi-surprise, but I'm really glad we had an opportunity to talk about this current campaign. It also gives me an opportunity to thank Kirsty, who headed up CDF's planning for the Cooperative Hall of Fame award ceremony, because she allowed us to actually bring our flyers to the event, Kirsty Boyette, and we really want people to become engaged. It only takes a moment. Go to the website and select a co-op that gives products that you use or is a service that you would recommend, because during the holiday time, it's pretty difficult, not only for merchandise, but it's also difficult for services. So I'm glad you gave us an opportunity for that. But going to the future, because Vernon's, of course, eager to talk about the future. What do you see in the future, Vernon?
Well, that's a broad question. So right now with Hurricane Milton, and we have had windstorms and fires, we're looking at the effects of climate change. So if we're not really careful, we'll leave my grandchildren, and I have 2 great-grands, a planet that just doesn't work. So we have got to, when we start talking about co-ops, honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others, in that social responsibility comes climate change. Okay? And we have got to, and co-ops are almost heading in terms of organizations and businesses, this whole effort to reduce the CO2 in the atmosphere. The amount that goes up, and then trying to figure out how to eliminate some that's there. We've got to get better control over that. And that's the biggest threat we have right now, in my mind. In the black community, there's still racism. Okay. If you look at for indigenous people or Hispanic people, there's still issues with women. That's why I believe Hillary Clinton didn't win, because she was a woman, first and foremost. So we still have those issues and isms. Co-ops is a way of when you look at the first principle, they're open to everybody and anybody, regardless of all of those different things, that co-ops can also help that. But the biggest thing is confronting climate change right now.
That question was your opportunity to say anything you wanted to say about the future. Now I'll be a little more specific.
Okay.
And speak to something that we've been pondering over with ourselves. And that is, what role do you see everything co-op playing in the future? We talked about the use of AI. We talk a lot about the negative uses of AI, but with everything co-op, because we're a network, and we're a network that brings people together and shares information that the rest of our listeners can find useful. How do you see everything co-op playing a role in bringing people together and getting the information out? Is it a book? Is it a song? What are the other things that you have thought about as the role of everything co-op?
So first off, I would say we have a great team here, and I see us forging the future together. We've started a media company, a media worker co-op, where the four of us are members of that media company. We just got our bylaws done, and we just found out from the attorneys that we are in business. You know, it's all done. So now we need to implement. And that media company, the radio show will come under that. But we have over 400 different shows on Everything Co-op. We can take the data from those shows and create books. And we can create comic books for young people. We have had one person create 3 hip-hop songs about co-ops. Want to get those out in all kinds of different spaces, whether it's country or R&B or hip-hop, but get people to understand co-ops. And it's like any medium you can think of. I'm wanting to see how we can explore that medium to get people to understand co-ops, but do it in such a way that it's not just us. And we've had conversations about this, of maybe finding other people that want to do podcasts on co-ops, and we help them get started or get working. But there's all kinds of different ways we can get the word out, and that's what we want to do. And we've talked about some of those, and we'll just keep moving until we get some of those things done and realized.
All right. Well, that kind of sums up much of what we've talked about. I know one thing that we talked about that you didn't have an opportunity to speak about is the books and the use of AI to possibly answer questions that people may have. You know, maybe there's a portal that people come to and they can ask a question, and maybe AI can go into the interviews that we've had and find an answer. Any thoughts on those?
Well, we've looked at a number of ways of using AI to go in and listen to all 400 plus episodes and help to gather information about worker co-ops. Every time we've talked about worker co-ops, then AI would put that together, and that would be the information we need to write the book on worker co-ops from our shows, or credit unions, or rural electric co-ops, or worker co-ops, as we've talked about. So that's one way of using AI. There is just so many different ways of using AI that I don't even think we have even touched. I don't know what all of those ways are, but I would suggest we haven't even touched the ways we could use AI to get the messages out. I like the idea you said about if we looked at most frequent questions and get AI to answer those questions. If somebody calls in or go online and ask a question, then AI could go through those 400 plus episodes and come up with answers of what we've said on the air. That's exciting to me, but okay, yes.
We're looking forward to it. I can't believe that time goes by so fast. I want to give my team members an opportunity to have some parting words for Vernon. Not really parting, some closing words, if you will. And then, Vernon, we'll give you an opportunity to think about anything that we haven't talked about so you can have the final word. So I'll start with Rob. Any parting words for Vernon?
Well, you know, it is in the nature of our relationship for me to be adverse to do anything that gives you a big head or anything like that.
Any more of a big head, you mean?
Any more of a big head. Thank you, because that's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Okay. So it's been in my nature to avoid that. However, in this case, you know, I want to say just again, congratulations on the Hall of Fame win. Seeing everything that you've done over the last 11 years to help people understand the alternatives in the marketplace for being able to, as we talked about, use what is innate to ourselves as humans to move projects, people, opportunities forward in a way that's not extractive, but is done, you know, collaboratively. I know those two words don't, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I really admire the work that you've done, the commitment that you put into helping educate people, because I agree. And, you know, the person at the table I asked about, like, what does it need to do? That was Jessica Gordon-Nimart, and her thing was education, teaching young people and teaching everyone that the model is there, it exists, And it's just continues to be amazing to me that the most basic fundamental model of humanity is something that we have to reinforce, because the other model, which is more individual focused and selfish in a lot of ways, it's doing what it does.
It's taken over. Yep.
Yeah. But so thank you for all the work that you've done. It's a joy to be on the team with you, no matter how big that head is. We love it nonetheless.
It's my joy.
Hey, Justin. Thank you, Rob.
Well, I will say that we've done an abysmal job at the original roast that we had planned for Vernon, but it is a much easier job to just say all the great things about you instead. So we did spend more time on that. But all jokes aside, I think I commend you for all the work that you put in. I think your body of work speaks for itself. So as my one of my main roles, I will take up the obligation to lead everyone to the website, everything.coop, to just listen to the body of work that Vernon and Pat and the whole team here have been able to put together and compile all the knowledge. Just there's so much stuff there, and Vernon, you have so many insights. Just 411 episodes. I just looked it up, and counting. So I would just guide everyone there, and I really appreciate you, Vernon, as you already know. And I'll just leave it at that. So pass it on over.
We got to 1 minute, so I'll just say, many of you don't know, but Vernon and I are first cousins. Vernon, our parents are very proud of you, very proud of us. I thank you for all that you do. And since it's most important for you to have the last word, I'll give it to you.
So I was at the Black Co-op Agenda in St. Paul about 8 weeks ago, and a brother stood up in the back of the room. He said, I've been doing this kind of work for 40 years. I just didn't have the language. He didn't know to call it co-ops. And I think this is happening in the community where people are working together, working collectively, and they just don't know about co-ops and the whole structure behind co-ops. And that's what we are doing to let people know about it. And I would ask everybody out there, we'll see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively.
The preceding program was paid for by Everything Co-op.